Very pleased not to be joined here at Blogging the Boys by the one and only, the internationally renowned, the worldwide famous, you know him, you love him, Dallas Cowboys legend, one of the greatest human beings of all time. It is Mr. Billy Joe DuPree. Mr. DuPree, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again.
Oh, well, thanks for having me today, and see what we can figure out how to make this visit work for us.
Well, I've never had that challenge placed in front of me right before an interview, but I hope that I can clear the bar. Let's start strong. What did you have for breakfast today, Mr. DuPree?
Oh, bacon and eggs.
That's pretty solid. How do you take your eggs?
Scramble.
Okay, I'm an over medium kind of guy. I wanted a little yolky, you know what I mean, but not too much. I'm actually really, this is a big sports weekend. I don't know how much you follow all sports, but Ryder Cup weekend, big NFL weekend, big college football weekend. So I got some groceries this morning actually to do some biscuits and bacon and eggs and sausage over the weekend. So I'll just call it the DuPree special as I cook it all up.
Well, if you want a special, try a bacon and egg sandwich and add a slice of apple and spinach with it.
A slice of apple. You know, my 3-year-old son loves apples, and we cut them up for breakfast anyway. So I'll just slide one in and tell him that Billy Joe DuPree recommended it. It is a busy time in the sporting calendar, and I have a lot of questions about what you have going on today specifically. But I'm curious, like, how much, as someone who played in the NFL and had such an illustrious career, do you follow it at all these days, or are you casually interested? Are you heavily interested? What is it like for you?
Well, let's say I'm between casual and heavy.
Okay.
This depends on what's going on with the family on a regular basis, and to make more specific for you, actually, I never was a real big football fan growing up. I got coerced into playing football in high school. I was a sophomore in high school when I started playing football, and they took me off the basketball court to do that. So from that standpoint, I rolled into this football thing because it was a challenge.
Well, I mean, a challenge is putting it lightly. To play football collegiately and in the NFL, I think that's a little bit more than a challenge, and that you were able to do so commendably is really impressive. I can understand the familial aspect of it. I mentioned I have a 3-year-old son. I cover the Dallas Cowboys, and my son happened to be born the night before Thanksgiving. So my life fully revolves around football season, like many other people. I do want to talk about why you're here today, and that is the Pro Football Retired Players Association. You all do such incredible work, and we're chatting on Thursday, September 25th, and you all have a banquet this evening.
Yeah, this evening, and our banquet is for individuals who have displayed a interest in or support for organizations and or individuals that needed some type of assistance.
There are more than 10,000 individuals who are a part of the organization. And I think that it's easy for people to get swept up in the active moment, watching players score touchdowns. But there is a reality that the retired players face. And I think we've talked more about that as a society from a health standpoint, but there are financial challenges, financial burdens. I mean, mental tolls, all sorts of things. Playing in the NFL, as we discussed, is an arduous task. And players who walk through that, and their families who walk through that with them and experience that with them, there are a lot of people who need help ultimately in life after football.
Yeah, and the thing is to follow up on that. Players prior to '93 are the individuals who really are experiencing some little difficulties in a sense after football. So we developed this organization, Pro Football Players Retired Association, to accommodate some of those individuals outside the game who may not. Everybody's not going to make the Hall of Fame. Everybody's not going to win a Super Bowl. Everybody's not going to be singled out individually for their performance. But there's a lot of guys who make things happen on the field that are not recognized, and most of them are offensive linemen and some defensive linemen and individuals like that. And of course, we want to make sure, or try to make sure, that they're included in all the process after the fact, because they may need a little assistance. And like I said, minimum wage these days is, I think, $400 400,000, 300, 400,000. Compared to the years that I came in the league,
Right.
$300,000 was not an issue. And,
Yeah.
and during the time we had a strike, we struck a player strike, and in that strike, the NFL developed a better, I guess, process of dealing with their sponsors. And from that standpoint, all their revenue was predicated on the sponsors. So if the sponsors put a clause in, you got to do 6 games. So we went on strike, walkout for players, and eventually resolved the deal and got something out of it, but nothing like what they ended up getting out of that. I guess it was '93 organization. Players post '93 salaries, well, just went through the roof from that standpoint. So a lot of guys prior to that may need a little assistance every so often.
I think that's why the cause is very noble. And to your point, the dawn of the television deals in the mid '90s really changed the financial abilities of everyone involved, and we've obviously seen that just reach an astronomical level in our current day. I mean, these are billion-dollar deals now that are happening with multiple partners for the NFL for rights to different nights. I mean, it was not always like this. To your point. The event in question tonight is in Houston, and as a Houston Astros fan, I don't know if you are, sir. I know you're from Louisiana, but so if you are, yeah, it's a tough time right now for the Astros as the Major League Baseball regular season comes to a close. I've still got my fingers crossed for a miracle down the stretch, but we're not here today to discuss a team that's lamenting in that way. But the event tonight is in Houston, and you all are handing out the PFRPA Champions Award to a handful of people who you mentioned, and among them, Houston legend Andre Johnson. Like you said, he's a Hall of Famer, but not someone. Even to your point, not everyone's a Hall of Famer. Not everyone won the Super Bowl. Not everyone experiences all of the glories that professional football has to offer.
Well, point of interest in or consideration is the guys who have reached that pinnacle. Quite a few have decided to step back and said, "Okay, we had a great deal in '93. Let's see if we take care of some of the guys that helped us get to this point." By the way, the NFL during that '82 strike. You would probably go back and look at it. After the '82 strike, anytime they had a labor negotiation, it was a lockout instead of a walkout. The reason it was a lockout is that the NFL had a great deal with the advertisers. The years we played, they had to play 6 games in order to reach that deal. And we eventually ended up forcing it to 6 games before he went out. Now, they don't have that situation because players don't walk out. The last time they had that situation, labor relations, the owners locked out. They locked out because they solidified their deal with their sponsors, so they still get paid.
No, you're absolutely right. That was the 2011 season that experienced the lockout, and even then, the actual playing season was never compromised. It was just the off season as everyone involved brokered the new collective bargaining agreement. This is all incredible work, and that's why I'm such a fan of y'all's organization and the work that you all are doing. I'm such an appreciator of the time that you played. I don't think that we give it enough grace and credit because of the way the game was played and the circumstances, to your point, that you all played under. If I may, I'd love to ask you about Leroy Jordan, who was your teammate, obviously, with the Cowboys and passed away not too long ago. Just one of the greatest players in all of football history, not even just NFL history. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest literal football players to ever live.
Yeah, Leroy was so underrated as a player, but he was he was a better person than he was a player for all parts considered. But Leroy was a guy that kind of looked out for some of the guys, younger guys that they had on the squad, and some of the younger guys looked up to him. And what I noticed. The difference between Leroy and Chuck Howley was there before Leroy. Chuck got into a business where he eventually would do the uniforms, cleaning uniforms, and that type of deal for the team. So when he would come into the locker room, guys with young guys that didn't know who he was, and he's a great player. He said, "What is this guy hanging around the locker room for?" Well, see, guys, you need to do your homework and find out who this guy is because he paved the way for you to be here. That standpoint. And Leroy was one of those guys that paved the way for young guys. And from what I could see, in my opinion, he seemed to add a little help to and consideration for younger guys when they came aboard.
I think that's again just a sign of the times. The way players operated and moved, and the decisions you all made. Circumstances in life was very different. I also am curious. This is the 50th anniversary this year of the. I know this wasn't your draft class, but the 1975 Dirty Dozen draft class, and that gets talked about so much. And I know you all lost the Super Bowl that year, and it was very unfortunate. But what are your memories of that? I mean, the NFL draft and what it is has dramatically changed, obviously, over 50 years. But was it obvious at the time that the Cowboys had brought in just this incredible crop of talent?
Obvious to other teams, yes. To the public, probably not until they got on the way and started winning a lot of games from that standpoint. But that was a great incentive for them to get to that point. And I would say that the toughest situation that they've ever had was Jimmy Johnson's first year. And I think he won fewer games than most teams in the league. And then 3 or 4 years later, he go on a roll to win 3 Super Bowls. So that's incredible for guys. And talent has changed, and players and coaches have changed.
I'm curious, Mr. DuPree, when you all get together, all of you retired players, and obviously you played in different times and for different teams in different markets, different cities. You all had different experiences. What are the things that the conversations ultimately turn to? What ultimately becomes? Is it talking about the game? Is it talking about the locker room? I mean, what ultimately becomes what you all kind of break bread over?
Practically all of those things. We conversed about, and most of the conversations I've had has been about plays on the field,
Sure.
Some other players on the field, and plays against players on the field, and that type of thing. Just comparing things, and some guys are very cordial about it, and other guys may be a little bit more hostile about it. Boy, did I ever beat you up on that day? No, you didn't. Let's go ahead.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome that so much time can pass and that it can still boil down to some trash talk. That's what sports are about. And it makes me happy to know that that's how you guys that becomes the North Star for you all is how can we remind someone about how we beat them or got one over on them. You mentioned that you're somewhere between a casual and an obsessive fan of football. I don't know how much you're following the Spartans, but as it relates to the Cowboys, what are your thoughts on the current day Cowboys, whether that's on the field, off the field? I don't know if you mentioned the Jimmy Johnson years, if you watched the Netflix documentary, things like that. I'm just curious for your general temperature of who the Dallas Cowboys are these days.
Well, personally, I think they got some players that can play. The peers, and you got to understand that this is an entirely new group of guys, particularly on defense, is what we're speaking of. And it takes a while for defensive players to recognize where they should be and when they should be there. Now, where it gets to be a real problem with defensive and defensive backs is when they have to start playing what they call a zone play. My areas are all covered. But what they don't consider, the young guys sometimes don't consider, that I got a zone, but the basic principles of a defensive back is nobody gets behind you. You have to keep everybody in front of you. So when you play a zone, you may not see that guy coming across the field behind you, and he ends up in that slot where it ends up being about 12, maybe 15, 20 yards wide between players, and so you can squeeze the football in there. So it's those things that have recognition, and I got indicated before, this is a new group of players trying to play together. once the secondary recognizes what they should be doing, then the whole scheme will turn around, and it may take probably about another two weeks for that to occur.
I like the optimism, and I think a lot of people will appreciate it as well. I did want to just emphasize the greater good fund that you all have at the PFRPA, which is the foundation that all of this is kind of geared towards, and just give you another opportunity to talk about why this is important, because we're talking about players, and we recognize that football has changed in terms of the finances involved, but someday there will be more retired players. This fund and funds similar to it, causes similar to this,
Yeah.
will need to exist for players, as we talked about, who don't, who aren't Tom Brady. And no disrespect to Tom Brady, obviously, but
Well,
who don't get to experience everything.
just the guys on the high end. I mean,
Right.
and and we don't have any reservations because we don't make the decision on what they make, and the only evaluation that players have is how they play.
Right.
In fact, and if they don't play up to their contract, then they're gonna get talked about. So from the players themselves. But I think at this stage, it's a learning process, and particularly with the defensive backs, you got new guys. All these guys are not familiar with each other, and you always got a few new guys on offense as well. But defense is the key. Every guy, all the guys on defense, has to know what the other guys are doing in order to make sure that they do what they do. They can't depend on the pass rush on the pass. They got to just make sure they cover that guy, so you give that pass rusher a time to get to him. So
That's well said and well analyzed. If you want, Mr. DuPree, I'm certain that you could work for a broadcast team as well. If you're not too busy these days with all of your work in the retired player community. I'm so appreciative of your time and so appreciative of all the work you all are doing. My last one is you taught me the apple slice in a bacon in a what was it, a bacon and egg sandwich. What other, give us another culinary tip. I mean, I have to know, another fun kind of way to spice up my food.
well, that's going to be a little difficult, and let me just express why I'm this way. My mother was a fryer cook and cooked for restaurants. We stayed in the kitchen with her, so I am somewhat independent. I don't need any help for anything other than maybe go put some gas in the car.
Well, that's wonderful, and I'm inspired by that level of independence, and I'm going to apply it to my own life and teach it to my 3-year-old son, as I mentioned. Mr. DuPree, thank you for the time, and again, tremendous work that you all are doing. I hope the banquet goes off wonderfully, and that you all are able to give each other some good old fashioned ribbing when you're talking about who beat who back in the day.
Well, that usually comes up at some point in time, and hopefully it's in a civil manner.
Exactly.